Follow 912 on Amazon Music or with Wondery Plus to binge all 7 episodes right now. Just a quick heads up, this episode contains discussions of abuse and sexual assault. Thanks for listening. Episode 6, Significance, Meaning, Purpose, Community. So how do you just going forward, how do you identify yourself now? Are you an ex-violent extremist? Are you an ex-terrorist? Like, how do you identify yourself?
I still call myself a former extremist. It has serious consequences because people can see you as that's all you are.
Jesse Morton has had a lot of looks in the past 25 years. Today, as we speak, he's got kind of a Christopher Maloney thing going on. He's fit, in his 40s. He wears baldness better than most men wear hair. But in the years after 9/11, his look was a kufi on his scalp, a full beard on his face, and a scowl. A heaviness. And before all that?
Well, I was a hippie traveling around with the Grateful Dead.
Jesse had blonde dreads down to his back and a pit bull he adopted off the street by his side. Just when you think you've got all those former jihadists pegged. From an early age, Jesse's dad encouraged him to be open to new ways of thinking.
He loved Bob Dylan. I grew up with One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Jack Kerouac, all of the 60s authors, Be Here Now on the bookshelf.
Jesse's youth also brought daily abuse, he says, at the hands of his mother. And when he ran away from that at 15, he ran toward the loopy parking lot tailgate deadhead life.
So yeah, it was community and there was an ideology and it was a good time. I fell in love with the lyrics. I fell in love with the music. I fell in love with being in the live shows. I fell in love with hallucinating and eating psychedelics while I was in those shows.
By the turn of the millennium, magic trips and dreads evolved into selling weed. And then selling ecstasy. And then multiple arrests and addiction.
I found myself in Philadelphia hustling.
Jesse says he was running a scam with another guy he had just met.
His name was Shakur.
And the hustle was pretty simple.
What we used to do is we used to house, corporate execs in hotel rooms and run up to the ghetto to cop drugs for them and come back and sell them for 5 times what they cost in the ghetto to turn a profit.
One night, they had just scored. The cops stop them. They run. The cops chase. And they ditch into a nearby abandoned building.
Went to what they call in Philly an abandonminium. We sat behind this dry sheetwalk wall.
Adrenaline pumping, inches from getting caught, and Shakur whispers something to Jesse.
Just repeat these words after me and everything will be fine. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. He says them very slowly. I have no clue what he's saying.
They manage to elude the cops, and with the coast clear, they head to Shakur's place that he shares with his wife. She's a strict Muslim.
And he said, just tell her you convert to Islam and she'll let you in. So they go sleep in the bedroom. I sleep on the couch. I wake up in the morning to go use the bathroom. But on my way to the bathroom, I see the Quran open on a bookshelf and I grab it. I go back to the couch. I start to read it. The first verse I read says, this is a book wherein there's no doubt, a guidance for people of consciousness.
And then he has a moment. The moment. The lightning bolt. Was it God? Was it the 3 days worth of crack in his brain? Who's to say? But that feeling on Shakur's couch, it felt real. Realer than anything he had ever felt.
I continued to read. When he woke up, I told him I wanted to convert. We had
Wait. When he woke up, you told him you wanted to convert?
Yeah.
I find it so interesting how quickly you were willing to listen to somebody.
I just wanted direction and an identity because I didn't have one.
Where were you on 9/11 and how did you experience that day?
I was 6 months into fundamentalist Islam. I had just denounced my old way of life, had completely transformed my behavior, was clean and sober for the first time in my young adulthood, and was living at a Salvation Army in Syracuse, New York.
A few days later, Jesse listens to George W. speak to Congress and the world.
The evidence we have gathered all points to a collection of loosely affiliated terrorist organizations known as Al-Qaeda.
We've heard this speech before. It's the "They Hate Our Freedom" speech.
Our war on terror.
What Bush is doing here is laying out the new American narrative around 9/11.
It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found.
The new framework that we're all expected to follow. And there's one moment where he distills that story that he's telling down to its simplest form.
Every nation in every region now has a decision to make. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists.
You're either with us or you're with the terrorists. So you had to choose a side. But I couldn't choose our side because I felt like my society sucked. And I couldn't relate with our people. I couldn't relate with this idea that we're supposed to exist to work and shop. I wasn't getting my spiritual needs met. I didn't have any connection to a community, and there was no good jobs. I knew I was getting abused in the house by my own mother, and I knew I was about to lose my damn mind. For me, American life wasn't anything like it was being promoted by our president. And I didn't see it as democracy under attack. I saw it as American imperialism under attack. I mean, it was really easy to say, you know what? Fuck this. I'm with the terrorists.
In today's episode, 2 stories of extremism that span the last 20 years. The first, Jesse Morton. He's with the terrorists. The second, someone on the opposite side of that ultimatum. A different kind of extreme. From Pineapple Street Studios, Amazon Music, and Wondery, this is 912. How long had you been thinking about enlisting before you actually did it?
I hadn't thought about it at all. Yeah, somewhere in those first hour, plane crashes. I say I'm going to join the military. Another plane crashes.
Like, it is that immediate.
I can make drastic decisions sometimes.
When Amber Mathwig made the decision to enlist so suddenly on September 11th, 2001, it's not like she was leaving behind all the opportunities that the world had lined up for her.
In 2001, I was 19 years old. I was still living in my hometown in Minnesota with my parents.
A town called Arlington. You might make a detour there on your way to Minneapolis to see their water tower. It's painted to look like a giant baseball hovering over town. Did you like school?
Not really.
Why?
It just felt like kind of pointless. I didn't have a lot of friends. I wasn't good at sports. I was just kind of like really mediocre.
Not struggling, just bored. After graduation, Amber signed up at a for-profit business school.
I was going to school to be a travel agent.
One night, just a few weeks in, she decided, you know what, I hate this, and drops out the next day. Like she said, drastic decisions.
I like to call it my $5,000 typing education because that's that and having like a penchant for picking up airport codes is really all I got out of that.
Eventually, Amber finds a low-level admin job in insurance.
It was like around $11 or $12 an hour, which in 2000 was good money.
Yeah.
Working in administration. The same amount I see for a lot of places now when I'm job searching.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story in itself, isn't it?
That's 20 years ago, yeah.
It's just short of a year into that job when the towers come down, and Amber decides to enlist.
What I was thinking as a 19-year-old, like, this is just what you do, right? The U.S. military, it's glorious. Everybody who serves it is great.
But as impulsive as it seemed, she'd actually been getting nudged toward it her whole life, in 100 tiny ways.
You know, America's the best, number one in the world. Everybody's jealous of us. Military servicemen, police officers, they're special.
She'd play the patriotic songs with the school band every year on Memorial Day. At the mall, she'd pass the recruitment office on the way to Hot Topic.
When I was in high school, we took the ASVAB test, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. I scored really well.
Why would it? I've never even heard of it.
The ASVAB?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were led to believe that we had to take this test.
Amazing.
It's just a thing that you do. I mean, when I was in 5th grade, everybody took gun training together, gun safety training. It wasn't required by any means, but it was just kind of like, this is the earliest age that you can take gun safety training, so you take it.
And so when that moment came on September 11th, she was pulling a trigger that she had had her finger on the whole time.
I know, like, when I talk about it, it sounds drastic, but in my head, it was just like the next most sensible thing to do right now, being who I am and the need that is coming, is to join the military, even though I don't know how to shoot guns.
Well, you had gun training.
Well, I only had the one, though. And I would say sometime that afternoon, I very clearly recall just like going onto a military website and clicking, any recruiter can contact me.
Why did you pick the Navy?
I didn't. They picked me.
They were the first ones that called.
Yeah, they were the first ones that called.
You might not care that 53 cents out of every dollar that you give the federal income tax goes to kill Muslims like me. But I care. And thousands of Muslims like me care too. And we have had enough of American empire.
By 2003, the United States had added Iraq to its post-9/11 honey-do list. And Jesse Morton has made his way to New York City. But he's no longer Jesse Morton. He goes now by Yunus Abdullah Muhammad. You're preaching now. You're on the street.
And I was very good. People would stop and I'd get big congregations. And I realized I was a pretty powerful public speaker.
While you're bombing us in Philistine, while you're bombing us in Iraq.
And he really is. This is him from a few years later, but you get the idea.
While your soldiers are massacring us in Afghanistan. While you're killing us in every country, we are here to tell you that we will fight you. We will fight you until you are destroyed.
Jesse, now Yunus, hooks up with the Islamic Thinkers Society, a jihadist group based in Queens, and begins street preaching and organizing for them.
I was 100% committed and thought that I absolutely found the purpose of my life and the correct interpretation of it. I was a true believer, the likes of which I lived, breathed, ate, and slept the ideology that I believed in.
Was that a good feeling?
It was empowering.
That's different, though, isn't it? I'm thinking of, I saw some videos of you, like, would you call it proselytizing on the sidewalk? And you're very good at it, clearly. But B, I don't see happiness. I don't see a happy guy.
Well, because I was intoxicated like it was an opiate. The ideology was my drug. I never recovered. I just substituted, rather than heroin for cocaine or cocaine for heroin, I substituted heroin and cocaine for fundamentalism.
But of course, this isn't just being devout. He takes it like 100 steps further, past faithful adherent and all the way to radical. So during all this, where's bin Laden for you?
He's the godfather.
He is.
Yeah. His demeanor was amazing. I found here is a real Pancho Villa, a real freedom fighter. I mean, he was just inspiring. I think it's safe to say that if I had a choice between bin Laden's life and my own, I would have chose bin Laden.
He becomes an acolyte of Abdullah el-Faisal, a radical jihadist in prison at the time for soliciting the murder of non-Muslims, and Omar Bakri Muhammad, another Muslim cleric who vowed to inflict on the West a 9/11 day after day after day. And Jesse begins to see how some jihadists are pioneering the use of YouTube to attract followers.
And the Islamic Thinkers Society were still handing out pamphlets on 42nd Street on Friday nights. So we were like, these guys don't get it.
By 2007, he leaves the Islamic Thinkers Society and launches a website.
I had established revolutionmuslim.com as the hub for the dissemination of Salafi jihadist ideology.
We're commanded to terrorize the disbelievers. And this is a religion, like I said.
Commanded to terrorize the disbelievers?
The Quran says very clearly in the Arabic language, turhibuna. This means terrorize them. It's a command from Allah.
Jesse becomes one of the stand-in guys on TV for homegrown radicalism, the American who turned extremist, the traitor. This is him on CNN. You can hear it. He's all in.
So you're commanded.
It's a terrorism.
Terrorize.
Doesn't mean
anybody
you define terrorism as going and killing an innocent civilian. That's what I define terrorism as making them fearful so that they think twice before they go rape your mother or kill your brother or go onto your land and try to steal your resources.
Jesse's influence grows. Revolution Muslim has conferences, a 24-hour radio station, and the website is hosted in Indonesia, so American authorities can't take it down. All on the edge of the law, but not yet breaking it. And by 2008, he is no longer just the one who has been radicalized. Jesse Morton has become the radicalizer.
So what you're trying to do is convey your message in a manner that it reaches as many people as possible so that those that are on a path of searching for something can find it, and to make it appealable and to articulate it in a manner that is powerful enough to lure them in. It's what the far right-wing extremists now call red-pilling individuals. And I would argue that most seekers, no matter what they come into contact with, they'll accept it if it's sticky enough, resonant enough, and if it provides them significance, meaning, purpose, and community.
As Jesse Morton was being radicalized, the American war machine was picking up steam.
You are looking at Camp Victory, Baghdad, Iraq, home of the Combined Joint Task Force 7.
In December of 2003, the WWE puts on a show for the American forces now occupying Iraq.
Welcome to a special presentation of SmackDown, Christmas from Baghdad.
The main event is John Cena pounding on a wrestler named Big Show.
Hey!
And then Stone Cold Steve Austin comes out wearing a t-shirt that says "Fuck Fear," and he starts pounding on John Cena.
They're so excited to be entertaining the troops. Farouk off the rope.
Amazingly, all the wrestlers are put up in one of Saddam Hussein's plundered palaces while they're there.
We thank you for kicking ass, taking names, and capturing Saddam.
But Amber Mathwig, who by then had been in the Navy for a year and a half, she kind of missed the whole thing.
Iraq, the invasion of Iraq, God, I hate myself for saying this. It wasn't even a blip on the radar to me. So most people in the military do not actually serve in combat or like front lines.
Amber's first posting wasn't in the thick of it. It was on the other side of the world, at a naval base in Sasebo, Japan.
I chose to be a master at arms or a military police officer. Think of just anything that a patrol officer might do. Gate standing, checking fences, people getting bathroom breaks. Like, that's a serious thing when you have to stand post for 12 hours, is like bathroom and food breaks.
Wow.
We don't question a lot. We all just carry out our role. We're all a little cog in this machine, right?
And for a cog in this machine, especially a minor part of the machine, it becomes really easy to not pick up on how the American 9/11 narrative was beginning to fall apart around the world.
I knew nothing of the massive protests that were going on here in the US. And this is probably something that people are going, what the hell? How did you not know? Well, when you're stationed overseas, you're getting AFN, Armed Forces Network.
Plus, no real social media yet.
The environment of people that you're connected with and socializing with are, also very isolated, I don't want to say everybody is like-minded, but not to be different-minded.
But she has ambition. She wants to move up in the ranks. She wants to be in the heat of it, to be in Iraq or Afghanistan, maybe posted at Gitmo, even if she isn't fully aware of what is actually happening in those places now.
I wanted to do something involved with the war effort.
Finally, in 2008, she snags an assignment to Baghdad. She's stationed at Camp Victory, the same place where Big Show and John Cena were beating the crap out of each other in celebration of America's speedy triumph in Iraq. Now, 5 years later, the war effort that she is finally a part of has turned into a full-fledged quagmire.
And this is like the crazy thing. They're sending all these people in my job field, right? Master at Arms military police officer. And we don't even have an assignment until we get there. They're just like, we'll figure it out when you get there. And it's like,
what do you see when you get to Baghdad? Like, what's going on there?
It's a lot of confusion, a lot of people just sitting around.
Amber says she's ultimately put to work processing prisoners, the Iraqis that American troops are detaining as they fight the insurgency that grew out of our occupation. And on the one hand, she's struggling to make sense of her work at Camp Victory. Even saying the name must be starting to feel stupid. But on the other hand, she's actually battling obstacles that have nothing to do with the war.
This is the place that I first experienced, like, no longer just, men being stupid, sexist sort of things, but just like outright misogyny and discrimination.
But Amber guts up and sticks it out.
I just had to get to a point where I could actually call the shots. I just felt like I was on track for my plan, which was to just keep picking up rank and advance to being an officer when the opportunity arose.
Raise your hand if you get overwhelmed sometimes by the intensity of the world right now. If you didn't guess it, my hand is already raised. Good news, it's normal. And it's okay to take a step back once in a while and get help processing it all. Talkspace gives you unlimited access to a licensed therapist, so you can get help taking control of your emotions and find a balanced, effective approach to engaging with what is going on in the world. At Talkspace, your privacy and security are their number one priority. The app puts you in a private room with just you and your therapist. You can message them 24/7 and get replies throughout the day. No need to wait for a weekly appointment. Whether you're struggling with anxiety or depression, a sense of hopelessness, or whatever else you might be dealing with, Talkspace gives you access to the help you need to process those difficult emotions. Join Talkspace today and start taking control with a single message. Just visit Talkspace.com and get $100 off your first month when you use promo code 912 at sign up. That's $100 off at Talkspace.com, promo code NINETWELVE. Everyone wants to feel safe and secure. And that goes for you, and it goes for your family. And that is where SimpliSafe's new wireless outdoor security camera comes in. It's wireless, so it can install anywhere, extending SimpliSafe's perimeter of defense from your windows and doors to the far corners of your property. SimpliSafe is the system that U.S. News & World Report named Best Home Security System of 2021, and it just got even better. We actually just got our box from SimpliSafe in the mail, and it's simple. It's high-tech, and they explain it all. This brand new outdoor security camera is engineered with all the advanced tech to help keep you and your family safe. It's got ultra-wide 140-degree field of view, so you can keep watch over your entire yard. To learn more about the new SimpliSafe wireless outdoor security camera, visit simplisafe.com/912. SimpliSafe is offering 20% off your entire new system and your first month of monitoring service free when you enroll in interactive monitoring. Again, that's simplisafe.com/NINETWELVE. Disgraceland is an anthology podcast series about musicians getting away with murder and behaving very badly. Each episode digs into stories about the Beach Boys, Ozzy Osbourne, Whitney Houston, and many more. Stick around to the end of this episode to hear a brief preview of Disgraceland. How did somebody who seemed so confident in the work you were doing allow doubt to seep into that?
The beginning of the seeds of change happened when I was able to extract myself from the movement. And that was not by choice. That was by force. I had to run.
South Park celebrates a major milestone with the premiere of its 200th episode.
In 2010, the animated comedy South Park announces an episode in which they're going to depict the Prophet Muhammad. And haha, won't that be funny?
Sure. Who is it? We can get anybody for you. Muhammad, the prophet of the Muslim faith. Ooh. That's tricky.
Jesse's organization posts a warning, saying that the creators of South Park could end up like Theo Van Gogh, a Dutch filmmaker who was murdered by Islamic extremists. And unlike all their other jihadist provocations before this, they had now crossed a very specific legal line.
under American law, you can say the South Park writers will likely end up like Theo Van Gogh.
Right.
You're good.
Yeah.
You can't post their addresses and tell Muslims to visit them.
Which is what they did.
That's a communication of a threat.
The guy who works with Jesse who posted the threat is arrested. He's still in prison, actually. And Jesse himself flees the country.
So I got on a plane, went to Morocco.
I can't believe they let you on a plane.
I was shocked too.
Looking back on it now, Jesse sees that it was there, in Morocco, in Casablanca, surrounded by people who share his Muslim faith, that the cracks in his own radicalism began to form.
I don't communicate with Abdullah Faisal. I don't communicate with Omar Bakri Muhammad. I don't have an ability to communicate with the people that are my students.
And the connection he had with them begins to loosen its grip.
And the Arab Spring broke out.
Fair to say there's been a domino effect. Of course, it started in Tunisia, spread to Algeria, and south of Saudi Arabia's border in Yemen.
A new narrative begins to spread, a story not centered on America at all. And peaceful change without the terror begins to seem possible and attractive.
The people of Tunisia and Algeria and Egypt start to rise up against the totalitarian regimes that I had worked for so many years to help them get rid of.
Jesse also starts tutoring moderate Muslim teens in Casablanca to make money, and he connects with them, and it gets confusing.
And they start to say to me, well, we don't want your democracy. All Americans are fat, stupid, and lazy. And I myself find myself knee-jerk reaction, identifying as an American, feeling insulted and pushing back and telling them about the American Revolution and that the best option after Khilafah is actually democracy because it sure as hell beats Arab authoritarianism.
And during Ramadan, with good food and what he sees as a Moroccan culture of compassion, the extremes begin to seem limp, just out of gas.
One of my students saw right through me. And I would say the onset of my change was when she looked at me and she said, what are you doing? You with this beard, you with this kufi, you with this portrayal that you are somebody who is on Islam. She said, yes, you know Islam, but you don't know Islam. She said, you're fake. And if you look inside of yourself, you're smarter than this.
About the time that Jesse Morton was beginning to peel the scales from his eyes in Morocco, Amber Mathwig is being transferred out of Iraq. No more prisoner paperwork for her. She's assigned instead to a 40,000-ton, 831-foot amphibious assault ship, which you must admit sounds at least a little cool.
I was really excited to finally be on a ship.
And she arrives as a master-at-arms recently promoted. What is your rank?
Petty Officer First Class.
Petty Officer First Class.
Yeah, so I'm now somebody who's got both rank and responsibility.
Now in her 7th year in the Navy, a hell of a long journey of 12-hour guard shifts and bathroom breaks, she finally feels like she's getting somewhere. A career with progress, and hopefully, now, respect. And what happened when you started on that ship as an A6?
It was just a fuck show all the time.
A fuck show, but not because of the war beyond the ship. It was because of the day-to-day battle aboard it.
As a woman, you learn that you're really only given 3 options. You're either a slut, a bitch, or a dyke. I would say more often than not, I was the bitch because I'm tall, I'm broad-shouldered, I have a loud voice, I have an opinion. I was put in charge of people. I was put in charge of men who hated women, like absolutely just despised women being in charge of them. And there's also just like rampant harassment going on all over the ship of women. A young woman was sexually assaulted pretty severely. 3 young women, somebody had accessed private photos and put them on a USB, and the USB just got passed around. And I was furious. I was just so furious. I tried to file a complaint and it just got shot down, because everybody that I reported to and up was part of the problem.
The Navy declined to comment on Amber's allegations here.
I'm depressed. I'm not sleeping. I'm getting constantly berated by my chain of command. The folks that are supposed to, listen to me aren't listening to me because my supervisor is undermining me all the time.
What you're describing isn't like X happened, then Y happened, that's why I left. What you're describing is an onslaught.
Mm-hmm. And you don't feel it when you're in it.
What do you feel?
You feel like you're the problem.
Is that what you felt?
Yeah, I felt that I just was not good enough, that I lacked the physical capacity, the mental capacity, the want of doing all the things. And again, I felt that things could be different if just the right people were in charge, and not really realizing how systemic it all is.
And once you sign up, you can't just say, I quit. You're a cog now. You signed a contract.
You can't leave it. You can't go back to your family. You can't call in sick. You can't explore other options because, the Navy has you, the military has you. So there's not even any hope other than I get out 6 months from now, I get out 18 months from now.
And that feeling from all those years ago when she decided to enlist, defending America, a big, vast story to be a part of, what happened to that? Amber hadn't realized how myopic her vision had become, how the obstacles that she was navigating every day kept her from even thinking about the bigger picture, much less interrogating it. This became absurdly clear to Amber one day in March of 2011. This is during the Arab Spring, when the ship is stationed in the Mediterranean.
I'm sitting on the mess decks, and I look up at the news that's playing, and there's freaking bombers taking off to bomb Libya from a ship. And then I'm like, wait a second, is that our ship? Half the ship or more had no idea what was going on the flight deck, or what the mission was that we were carrying out. And we're not even a place to question that if we did know. The cog does not need to know what's going on in another part of the machine. The cog just needs to do its job. And so when you don't have the brain capacity to even think outside of the daily survival of the environment that you're in, how are you supposed to start questioning and challenging, why are we bombing Libya?
Amber Mathwig decides to abandon the military as soon as they will let her go. Jesse Morton, on the other hand, has a decision to break away made for him.
Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of Al-Qaeda.
A few months after the Americans finally come for Osama bin Laden, they come for Jesse. Turns out they knew where he was all along. He's arrested, and they arrive to bring him back to the United States.
And they escorted me from the jail to the airport. The airport was shut down. The Moroccans were standing there with machine guns. And all of a sudden, this airplane swoops onto the runway.
All for you.
Yeah. FBI, Secret Service, Navy SEALs, doctors, people that are going to review my physical condition, the embassy head, a whole team of about 20 people swoop in, take over the airport, take me into an office, strip me down naked, take pictures of myself in case I accuse them of torture, move like clockwork, go through all of my material, escort me out, dress me in the orange fatigues of Guantanamo Bay. So I'm trembling, oh my God, they're taking you to fucking Guantanamo, bro. Nice work, asshole. You really fucked up this time. And I have earplugs in my ears. I have blinders on my eyes. I have shackles on my ankles. The Moroccans are even just looking at me like, holy shit, these Americans really know how to do this shit.
Did you crack?
You just go with it. All the things that I had been through in my life, I'll never crack. But I felt every moment of it. I absorbed every piece of the trauma. It was traumatizing, but not traumatizing because of what they were doing to me. Traumatizing because it was a tragedy, and I was reliving a tragedy. And in my brain, she was right. Your mother was right. You're a piece of shit. As I walk up the tarmac. So I felt like she had won because I had fought my whole life to try to liberate myself from that abuse. And she won. And I felt so bad that she was going to be able to celebrate because her son was about to do life in prison. They walked me up the plane and they set me in a chair. They unplugged the earphones. They took off the blinders and they put my Quran down in front of me and they said, do you want us to call you Jesse Morton or do you want us to call you Yunus Abdullah Muhammad? And I said Jesse Morton.
A few months after Jesse Morton's arrest, Amber Mathwig finally gets out of the Navy.
I start college in January of 2012, and there's just something wrong with me. I am physically broken. I can barely stay awake, and I'm just so angry about everything. My advisor picks this class to meet one of the markers for the school. And I show up and it's a feminist theory-based class. And I was just irate. I was like, I'm not doing this. This is stupid. I don't want to listen to these fucking feminists. They don't know anything about the world.
But as is often the case with anyone you don't want to listen to, Amber comes to realize they have a point and a perspective that resonates.
And then just all these things were clicking. Like I was starting to be given language to understand my experience. I was seeking out more holistic healthcare. I was starting to accept that I probably needed to go to therapy.
Wow. And she begins to fully acknowledge her own experience in the Navy, her own status as a casualty of that war.
I would say fall of that year is the first time that I ever spoke out loud to anybody in a class that I had been sexually assaulted while I was on active duty.
Amber began to see that the decades of struggles with a system stacked against her, against any her, frankly, she began to see it all not as a distraction from the work that she was there for, but inextricably tied to it.
What I was feeling is what keeps us in the system in unquestioning and continues to allow U.S. imperialism to flourish so strongly. I have noticed in the last few years that I've been deeply involved in specifically anti-war, anti-militarism organizing. So almost every woman or femme or non-binary individual that is involved gets involved because of the personal violence that they experience. And so we're actually like starting to think about it right from the very beginning about what is wrong with this system. Not just that like war is bad, we need to find a better like humanitarian way to have war, but no, we actually need to change the entire way that we deal with foreign relations, you know, or that we, yeah.
You've been radicalized. Amber Mathwig is back in Minnesota after 10 years as a Navy Master-at-Arms. She is now an organizer with About Face, Veterans Against the War.
When I first started to come out of jihadism, I was in Alexandria Detention Center in Virginia. And I had this dream. I was running through a wheat field and I could hear my father in the wheat field and I was trying to find him. And all of a sudden this gust of wind came and instead of blow around through the wheat, I was picked up into the air and I'm sitting on like a cloud, but it's like a prayer mat at the same time. And there is Osama bin Laden dressed in white. I kept trying to ask him like, am I becoming an apostate? Am I becoming an apostate? And he wouldn't answer me. And then his face like melted and he looked like a clown. And I jumped up in the cell and I was literally like coated in sweat. And ever since that dream, every time I look at Osama bin Laden, I see him as a person who was just a regular man who'd sold a dream that was so destructive.
Before Jesse Morton was sentenced to 11.5 years for supporting terrorism, before he began cooperating with authorities as an informant, for which he was released early, before he became an expert on de-radicalization, before all that, when Jesse Morton was back in his cell, waking up in a cold sweat from that dream, that is when Jesse Morton began searching again.
And I just used my time to tap into Enlightenment philosophers, the Encyclopedia Britannica's Great Books of the Western World, biographies of the Founding Fathers.
Are you looking for a new ideology?
I don't think I was consciously, but it had an impact. So now my de-radicalization in the cell is growing to like fascination with the Federalist Papers, an absolute addiction to Alexander Hamilton. I'm actually starting to believe, and I'm feeling in my soul, that my life's not over.
Jesse had found a new narrative, actually an old one, seen with fresh eyes.
I feel like I'm learning how to properly understand a religion that I still consider to be the truth. And something tells me that, like, I can still play a role in life of some sort that has significance, even if I'm in jail. I don't want to use patriot because it's too easy to identify that with some like reductionist pro-American attitude.
Yeah.
But I was like a real believer in like the world that America made. I mean, again, de-radicalization, I don't know. It depends. Like I would say I reoriented my radicalization if you want the real truth.
Jesse Morton served as one of the most prolific informants ever in the War on Terror. He was released from prison in 2015 and now works as an expert on de-radicalization and the holistic prevention of extremism. Next time on the finale of 9/12, Memorial.
My name is Dakota Sawyer, and I run the Brunswick 9/11 Never Forget Committee.
And where were you on 9/11?
Not even born. Welcome to the first ever 9/11 telethon to raise money for the Brunswick 9/11 Memorial. This is a 5-hour long telethon.
I mean, 5 hours is a long time.
Yeah. Our goal is $200,000. We've raised $700 of that goal. We need $199,300. Donate now.
Graceland. While you're listening, be sure to follow Disgraceland wherever you get your podcasts, or binge the full second season right now exclusively on Amazon Music.
Fleetwood Mac caught up in cults and cocaine. Ray Charles busting up musical genres and busted by the feds. Black Sabbath literally on fire. Tommy James making that money for the mob. Paul McCartney behind bars. John Lennon under surveillance. The tragic life of Eric Clapton. The tragic death of Dimebag Darrell. And just exactly how peaceful and loving was Woodstock. These are just some of the most shocking stories from Disgraceland. Disgraceland is hosted by me, Jake Brennan, and is the world's first and best music and true crime podcast. Billboard, Rolling Stone Magazine, The Guardian, Variety, Ryan Seacrest, Forbes, Access Hollywood, and more have all raved about Disgraceland. Why? Because music history doesn't have to be boring. And because the lives of rock stars are highly dramatic and endlessly entertaining, just like their music, and just like this podcast. Dramatic, immersive, intense. Murder, mayhem, drugs, devil worshippers, the mob, the feds, and at the center of it all, musicians getting away with murder and behaving very badly. Find and follow Disgraceland on the Amazon Music app, or just tell your Echo device, Alexa, play the Disgraceland podcast, and then strap in and get ready for some of the most insane stories yet. Rock-a-rolla.